a Brewmaster, the Plague Weaver, the Poxmaker, Nurgle's Chosen. He is also known as Jaharin or Zoktulav, Kilsavard the Fell-Breathed, or Zinfar the Ever-Pestilent. This is of course Kugarth, Plaguefather. He's also known as the Fetid Brewmaster, as well as the Brewmaster. Of all of Nurgle's servants, this one is the least jovial of all. A lot of this lore regarding him being so unjolly is more connected to his 40k version. However, I think it does apply to both, so I will be including it in both versions of the Plaguefather video. When Nurgle was preparing a great plague in his cauldron, a little Nurgling fell from his shoulder into the great. But it did not die, and it did not get consumed by the liquid. It in fact drank all of it, and became big and mighty. But Nurgle was not upset by this. He loved his new creation, as it had become a greater demon. Whilst other great unclean ones worked to spread plagues, or plot, or play parts in their master's plan, Kugarth is a little standoffish. He is the first to go into the new world. He is the first to go into the old world. He is the first to go into the mortal realm and collect ingredients for his brew. Carried aloft by a palanquin of many Nurglings, he is Nurgle's favourite. But there is no smile, there is no happiness in his voice. Only determination and need to recreate the brew that he drank. You see, he feels terribly bad about stopping Nurgle's creation from being released onto the world, and therefore works tirelessly and effortlessly to recreate it. He is also trying to create such a brew that will infect the gods themselves, that no one will be able to escape it. That even Khorne and Slaanesh and Tzeentch will be brought low by his creation. And thus, Nurgle himself is quite okay to let this continue. So why am I talking about Kugarth Plaguefather? Well, Kugarth Plaguefather has been seen in the latest Total War Warhammer video. You can see him very quickly, which I'll include in the screen now. But you definitely can see him, so I've decided to do a video on him. Now, I'm not a big fan of Nurgle. I think he's an acquired taste, and therefore he would be probably the last one that I would ever play, simply because his aesthetics are not visually pleasing. But that's the whole point of Nurgle, isn't it? You either like it or you don't like it. Its grossness and its visceral and disgustingness are at the forefront of it. And I can't deny that's what it does. It does it perfectly. So back to Kugarth. Or Kugarth. Kugarth one day goes out into the world and he decides to collect some ingredients for his brew. And he kills a load of Skaven. He selects the choicest Skaven bladders and puts them into his pot. And the red pox is amplified 100-fold. The Plaguefather carries masses and masses of specimens. He can't stop his research, so even when he enters the mortal realms, or even when he enters the old world, or the Warhammer world, or what have you, he needs to be carried with his portable lab. He must experiment. It drives him, it compels him to an almost unstoppable degree. He has encountered dwarves. He takes parts of them and he creates and he boils and he brews. Nothing is beyond him finding a new ingredient. But Kugarth will not be dissuaded from carrying out his master's wishes. If there is a plan, if there is a plot, if there is something that must be done, Kugarth is the one that Nurgle will choose to send. While the others are bickering and fighting and arguing amongst themselves, Kugarth is the one he can go to and say, "Bring me this. Unleash this plague. Fight for me here." In 1316 Imperial calendar, Kugarth sacked 3 dwarven halls. In the year 2520, he was set against Carrier's Fate Weaver, whose video you can watch here. This is the Warhammer one. I will be doing the 40k one later. In the Year of Woe, he unleashed masses of plagues on Musalan, stopping Tzeentch's great plans. And the two gods are at odds with each other, so of course the Premier God of Nurgle would be set against the Premier God of Tzeentch, and Kugath won that battle. During the End Times, and the End Times lore I will be covering separately because, well, I'm going to be honest, there are problems with it. It gave us some great figures, but there are problems with the lore itself. So I will be covering his End Times lore, and ultimately, that's a bit of a spoiler, but I won't give it to you. But if you are interested in the End Times lore for what happens to Old Kugath, it will be covered in the Battle of the Temple video that I will be doing regarding that. But saying that, greater demons of Nurgle are very slow, but Kugath, because he's carried on this massive palanquin, carried by hundreds, maybe even thousands of Nurglings, is quite fast. He's quite speedy compared to other demons. His armies often contain creatures which other greater demons would not take into the field, simply because Kugath must experiment, and therefore we saw some Plague Toads. Plague Toads are a cool unit, and I'm glad that they've included them in the game because they're one of the ones that are very rarely seen. But yeah, great. He is Nurgle's right hand basically, and he is a master brewmaster, maybe only second to Nurgle himself or itself. So it'll be interesting to see how he's voiced. It'll be interesting to see what his campaign is like, because Kugath is a rather strange one to pick. They could have picked any named greater demon of Nurgle. For example, Epidemus is a maggot king. He is Nurgle's chosen Tallyman and one of the 7 protectors of pestilence. Maybe I'll do a video on him, but he's not in the game. But maybe I will do a video on all the like premier demons that should really be done. But yeah, he's one of the very ones that I found quite interesting, the Tallyman of Nurgle. He had a rather awful Finecast model, but again, I'm not a fan of Nurgle stuff, so therefore I would probably be very biased towards that. So thank you all for watching. Do take care of yourselves. I've been Trix, you've been you. And bye bye.